You ever felt that sudden pull towards someone, that strange familiarity, like you've met before in another lifetime? You don't know why, but the first time their eyes meet yours, something inside you whispers, "Pay attention." And yet, most people don't. They mistake it for infatuation, for coincidence, for timing. But the truth is, sometimes, life brings your soulmate right to you, and you lose them before you ever realize who they were meant to be. Maybe you've already met them. Maybe you walked past them. Maybe you held their hand once, and didn't know that was the moment your souls were trying to remember each other. This isn't a story about destiny. It's a quiet reminder about awareness, about not sleeping through the most important connections of your life. Because, in the rush of surviving, you might forget to recognize the person who was sent, to remind you of who you truly are. See, most people think a soulmate will arrive as peace, but often, they come as mirrors. They reflect back the parts of you that you've buried, the wounds you've ignored, the light you've dimmed. They don't just love you, they wake you, and that awakening can hurt. It can shake the walls of everything you thought you understood about love. If you've ever met someone who changed you without trying, someone whose presence felt like truth, you might have already encountered your soulmate. But the question is, did you recognize them, or did fear make you walk away? In this video, we're going to go deep into that, how to recognize your soulmate before you lose them. Not through logic, not through lists, but through the kind of knowing that happens in your bones, in your breath, in the silence that lives between two heartbeats. And if you've ever been the one who stayed a little too long hoping they'd see you the way you saw them, or the one who left too soon because love felt too big, this space is for you. You're not broken, you're human, and you're learning the language of connection all over again. So take a deep breath, stay with me, because by the end of this, you might not only understand how to find your soulmate, you might finally understand why your heart had to break before it could ever recognize love. If this message already feels like it's speaking to something inside you, stay. And maybe, if it feels right, subscribe, not for me, but for the parts of you that still believe in something real. Because what we're about to uncover might just change the way you see every person who's ever crossed your path. They say your soulmate doesn't just arrive, they reappear. And maybe that's why the first moment you met them didn't feel like meeting someone new. It felt like remembering, like a song you hadn't heard in years, but somehow you still knew every word. You might not have even realized it then. Maybe you brushed it off. Maybe you told yourself, "I'm just imagining this." Because logic always tries to protect you from the truth that the heart already knows. But deep down, something shifted. Something subtle, a spark that didn't come from attraction, but from recognition. That's the first sign. The first whisper of the soul saying, "This one matters." And it doesn't always happen with fireworks. Sometimes it's quiet, a glance that lingers a second too long, a silence that feels like home. The world doesn't stop spinning, but for a moment it slows down just enough for you to notice. Soulmates don't always come wrapped in the perfect timing. They come when you least expect it, when you're still healing, still uncertain, still afraid to open your heart again. And maybe that's exactly why they come then. Because they're meant to remind you that love was never meant to be safe. It was meant to be real. You might find them in the middle of chaos, when your life feels like it's falling apart. And instead of fixing it, they stand beside you, quietly holding the pieces with you. They don't rescue you. They see you. Not the version you show the world, the one who's strong, composed, always fine, but the version that trembles when no one's watching. You'll notice something different about the way they look at you. Not like they're studying you, but like they already know. It's unsettling at first, because it feels too intimate, too honest, too true. But that's the second sign. They see the parts of you you've hidden, and they don't turn away. The connection doesn't depend on shared interests or matching goals. It's something deeper, something that pulls you toward them, even when it makes no sense. You might even try to resist it. You might run, because what you feel isn't light, it's gravity. And gravity doesn't ask for permission. Soulmates are not always easy. They hold up a mirror. They show you where you're still hurting. They bring to the surface what you've been trying to bury. That's why sometimes the person you call your soulmate doesn't fit neatly into your life. They challenge you. They disrupt your patterns. They make you confront your own reflection. And that's where most people lose them. They mistake discomfort for incompatibility. They think, if it hurts, it can't be love. But the truth is, real love isn't always painless. Sometimes it's the fire that burns away everything that isn't you. So when someone enters your life and you feel that strange mix of fear and familiarity, stop, breathe. Don't rush to define it. Just notice what your soul is trying to say, because not every strong connection is meant to last forever. But every soulmate leaves a mark that changes how you love forever. There's a kind of silence that only happens between two people who truly see each other, not through the eyes, but through the ache. You'll know it when it happens. It's the quiet that doesn't demand to be filled, the kind that feels like a sanctuary. You sit beside them, and somehow the noise of the world fades into something soft. You don't need to explain who you are, or why you are the way you are. They seem to understand without words, like your souls are having a conversation your minds can't quite keep up with. That's the third sign. You feel safe being unguarded, and if you've spent years being too much or too little for others, this will feel foreign, almost suspicious. You'll find yourself waiting for the moment they pull away, waiting for the mask to drop, but they don't. They stay, not because you're easy to love, but because love, to them, was never supposed to be easy. It was supposed to be true. Still, the heart has a memory of pain. It flinches when someone gets too close. You might notice yourself testing them, pulling away to see if they follow, building small walls, hoping they'll climb over them. You'll try to protect yourself from what you want most, because wanting deeply means risking deeply. And sometimes, that's the hardest part of meeting your soulmate, realizing that the love you prayed for requires you to drop the armor you built to survive. You might even push them away, not because they've done anything wrong, but because being seen that clearly feels unbearable. It's not their presence that hurts. It's the light they shine on the places you haven't healed yet. But that's what soulmates do. They don't heal you. They show you where the healing needs to begin. And maybe that's the fourth sign. They awaken something you didn't know was asleep. You start questioning your choices, your patterns, the way you've been living. You find yourself wanting to grow, not to impress them, but because being around them makes you remember what you're capable of. They don't demand your change. They inspire it. It's strange how love like that can feel both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it asks for honesty. Liberating because it finally feels real. It's not the kind of love that fits into fairy tales. It's the kind that breaks you open, makes you confront your shadows, and then gently teaches you how to stand in your own light. And if you're lucky, if you recognize it before fear makes you run, that connection can become something eternal. Not in the sense of lasting forever in time, but in the sense that it leaves a fingerprint on your soul that no one else can replace. But here's the truth most people avoid. Not every soulmate stays. Some are meant to awaken you, not accompany you. They arrive to teach you what love feels like, so that when it comes again, you'll know not to look away. So when you meet someone who stirs something ancient in you, someone who makes you feel both seen and scared, pause. Don't rush to name it, or label it, or make it make sense. Because the soul never works in logic. It speaks in feeling, in silence, in the moments when time seems to hold its breath. There's a quiet ache that follows every soul connection, the knowing that something sacred has touched your life, even if it can't stay. You start to notice how the world looks different after them. The same streets, the same routines, but they don't feel the same anymore. Their presence, even if brief, rearrange something in you. You start craving honesty, the way others crave attention. You start wanting connection that doesn't demand performance. You start yearning for love that feels like peace, not proof. That's what a soulmate does. They shift your standard for what love should feel like. And once you've felt that depth, surface-level connections can never satisfy you again. But here's the thing. The soul doesn't differentiate between the ones meant to stay and the ones meant to teach. It loves with the same intensity. It opens with the same faith. That's why losing a soulmate hurts more than any breakup, any ending, because it's not just the person you miss. It's the version of yourself that you became when they were around. You begin to grieve not just the relationship, but the mirror they held up to your truth. The safety of being understood without translation, the way your laughter felt easier in their presence, the way your silence wasn't heavy, but holy. Sometimes that's how you recognize a soulmate, not in their arrival, but in their absence. When they leave, the world doesn't just go quiet, it feels dimmer, and yet that's where the lesson begins. Because love, the real kind, doesn't end when someone walks away. It transforms. It becomes a force that continues to live inside you, shaping you long after the goodbye. You might replay the moments wondering what you could have said differently, what signs you ignored, what fear made you run. But maybe it wasn't about keeping them. Maybe it was about learning what it means to see love clearly before the world teaches you to look away. Carl Jung once said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed. That's the essence of a soulmate. They are not there to complete you, but to catalyze you, to bring to life the dormant parts of your being that were waiting for recognition. You'll know it's a soulmate because, with them, you start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And even after they're gone, you carry that remembrance, a spark of something infinite that refuses to die. So don't see it as loss. See it as initiation. They didn't leave to punish you. They left because their part in your story was complete, because your soul had learned what it came to learn. And now you're being asked to integrate it, to take that love, that awareness, that expansion, and turn it inward. Because the truth is, your soulmate isn't always a person. Sometimes it's a mirror of the love you've been avoiding giving yourself. You meet them on the outside, so you can finally remember what's been waiting inside all along. There comes a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when you realize the story isn't about them anymore. It's about you. You start to understand that your soulmate didn't arrive to fill your emptiness, but to reveal where it lived. They didn't complete you, they uncovered you. And in that uncovering, they left you face to face with yourself. That's where the real journey begins. The fifth sign of a soulmate isn't in the connection you share, but in the transformation that follows. Because after them, something inside you refuses to settle. You stop chasing attention. You stop performing for love. You start craving truth even when it hurts. You begin to see how, for so long, you mistook attachment for affection. You loved people who couldn't meet you because you thought love meant endurance. But this person, the one who mirrored your soul, showed you another way. They showed you that love isn't about clinging, it's about becoming. You might still wake up thinking of them. You might still hear their voice in the soft corners of memory. But over time, you'll notice something subtle. Their voice begins to sound like yours. The lessons they brought now live within you. Their absence has become your awakening. And maybe that's what Jung meant when he said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Because sometimes it takes losing your soulmate to remember your soul. You start rebuilding differently now. You're gentler with yourself. You no longer rush into connections that demand your silence. You start choosing peace over drama, truth over validation. You start realizing that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. It just has to see you. And somewhere in that stillness, in that slow return to yourself, something miraculous happens. You stop waiting for the next great love story to save you. You start becoming it. That's when love begins to flow through you instead of toward you. You start seeing beauty in strangers' eyes, tenderness in ordinary moments, grace in your own reflection. You start feeling connected to everything: the sunlight, the laughter of strangers, the rhythm of your breath. It's like your soul, once fractured by loss, begins to sing again. That's the secret no one tells you. Meeting your soulmate isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of remembering who you are without the noise. So when life feels empty, when love feels lost, pause. Listen. The connection didn't die. It transformed into a softer, quieter love, the kind that whispers through your veins, reminding you that you were never alone. And someday, maybe when you least expect it, love will come again. Not as a search, not as longing, but as recognition this time, of yourself in another. And you'll smile, not with desperation, but with peace, because now you know what love really is. It's not about finding the one who completes you. It's about recognizing the one who reflects who you've become. There will come a time when you meet someone new, and this time, it won't feel like falling. It will feel like arriving. The difference is subtle, but you'll know. Because before, love felt like a chase, a desperate reaching for something that always seemed to slip away. But now, after everything you've learned, love feels still, grounded, familiar in a peaceful way, not a painful one. That's how you'll know you've grown. That's how you'll know the lessons your soulmate gave you have finally taken root. This person might not make your heart race in chaos. They won't ignite your anxiety or make you question your worth. Instead, they'll bring you calm. And at first, that calm might feel strange, like the silence after a storm you've lived in for too long. You might even mistake it for boredom. But that's because you're not used to being safe. The sixth sign of recognizing your soulmate, the real one this time, is peace. Peace that doesn't demand excitement, doesn't depend on drama, doesn't need proof. Peace that simply exists in the way you breathe around them. You'll notice that you don't need to perform. You can laugh without shrinking, speak without overthinking, love without begging. You'll feel seen, not because they studied you, but because they recognize the light you finally let yourself keep. And maybe, in that quiet, you'll realize something even deeper. Your soulmate doesn't arrive to complete your healing, they arrive because you've healed enough to meet them. That's what people often get wrong about love. They think they have to be perfect to deserve it. But love was never about perfection. It was about truth. About two souls meeting where they are and choosing to grow together. This time, you won't run from the mirror. You'll stand in it. You'll love from wholeness, not from hunger. You'll see that the universe never took your soulmate away. It simply prepared you to meet them again, or to meet the version of love that aligns with the person you've become. You'll understand that every heartbreak was a doorway. Every loss was a lesson in recognition. Because before you could meet your soulmate, you had to meet yourself. And that journey, the long, lonely, aching one, was never wasted. You'll look back and see how every ending led you here, to this stillness, to this truth, to this love that doesn't demand you to be anyone but who you already are. And in that moment, maybe you'll whisper a quiet thank you to the ones who hurt you, to the ones who left, to the one who awakened you, because without them, you would never have learned how to stay. And maybe that's the final recognition of a soulmate. You don't lose them when they go. You carry them in the way you love now, in the softness of your voice, in the boundaries you finally honor, in the peace you refuse to give away. Love changes form, but it never disappears. It just keeps finding new ways to remind you that you are already whole. There's a moment, often quiet and unseen, when you realize you've come full circle, not back to where you began, but back to yourself. The version of you that once begged to be chosen now chooses with calm. The one who once mistook chaos for passion now recognizes peace as devotion. You no longer chase recognition. You embody it. That's the final truth your soulmate came to teach you. Love is not found. It's remembered. You'll start noticing small things. How you no longer over-explain yourself to be understood. How you no longer give your heart to people who can't hold it. How you no longer wait for love to prove itself through pain. Because now you know real love doesn't scream to be heard. It whispers. It feels like ease, like exhaling after holding your breath for years. You might still think of them sometimes, the one who awakened it all. Not with longing, but with gratitude. Because even if they couldn't stay, they gave you something sacred, the mirror that led you home. They taught you how to love without losing yourself, how to recognize soul connection not as something that consumes, but something that expands. And that's what makes love eternal, not its duration, but its transformation. Even if the body leaves, the lesson remains. The soul remembers. There's a beauty in understanding that not every love story is meant to last, but every true connection leaves an imprint that changes how you move through the world. And when you finally meet the love that stays, the one built on truth, not fear, you'll meet them differently. You'll meet them as someone who no longer needs saving, but someone who can stand beside another soul, whole and unafraid. You'll talk slower, listen deeper. You'll touch with intention. You'll love with awareness. Because now, you know that love isn't a rush, it's a rhythm. A quiet promise between two people who have learned how to see, not just look. And in that recognition, you'll finally understand what Jung hinted at, that the meeting of souls is a sacred alchemy. Two beings, transforming not to become each other, but to become more of themselves. So if you've ever lost someone who felt like home, don't curse the loss. Bless it, because it was never the ending. It was the initiation, the beginning of learning how to love with eyes wide open. And maybe, just maybe, one day you'll sit across from someone new and the air will feel familiar again. Not because it's them, but because you've come home, and you'll smile softly. Because you'll finally understand your soulmate was never a person. It was a mirror that taught you how to recognize yourself in the light of another. Thank you for being here, for listening, for feeling, for remembering. If this story found a place in your heart, let it stay there for a while. Share it with someone who needs to hear that love doesn't always end sometimes. It simply changes shape. And if you'd like to keep walking this journey of healing, reflection, and rediscovery, subscribe, stay close, and let's keep finding the beauty in what remains. Because somewhere between loss and love, between goodbye and beginning, we all find what our souls have been trying to remember.